Hey everybody, welcome to another exciting episode of Coffee with Tracey. I am your host, Tracey Osborne. Today we are going to talk about turning life's obstacles into opportunities. So what do you do when life hands you lemons? You don't throw them at somebody, you turn them into something, right? So my guest today has gone from being a homeless single parent to being a CEO, multi-award-winning CEO. So I'm really excited. Let me read her bio. This is Kylie Travers. And so Kylie is a multiple international award-winning CEO, speaker, author, writer, and charity advocate. She has a passion for travel, finance, and her family. She's turned her obstacles into opportunities, been an advocate for various charities, and now focuses on writing, public speaking, and mentoring about goals, motivation, travel, finance, and the steps to take to create a life you love. Her methods have enabled many to make more money, travel more, spend more time with their family, and in general live happier, more fulfilled lives. I really like that whole travel more thing and the money thing. Through what she has achieved, Kylie has won numerous awards and has been a finalist for the Young Australian of the Year in 2015. She's currently based in Melbourne, Australia with her partner and her 2 daughters. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. Homeless, single parent, victim of domestic abuse, to multi-international award-winning CEO. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a lot, obviously. I quickly left my husband in 2012. He's now my ex-husband. He was quite abusive, and within a week of leaving him, I was robbed of everything, including my underwear, not by him. And then a few weeks later, I was raped in that same home, and then we ended up homeless, my daughters and I. They had learning disabilities at the time, so we couldn't actually leave the area because their therapy and everything was within the area, so we were sort of stuck there. I eventually managed to get us to move back to where the state that my parents were living in, and all my family were, and that sort of thing, and got them into the therapy that they needed there, and sort of started over. And then during this time as well, I was doing blogging and writing and speaking and that sort of thing. So I tried to continue to do that whilst trying to juggle everything and facing him in court and all that sort of stuff. And then in 2014, I launched my company, which was for social media and that, mainly because I was asked by social media influencers to connect them with brands and brands to be connected. And then I was asked to do training for government departments and all this sort of stuff. Wow. So I've gone, okay, yes, I'll do all of it. I could fit it in around my daughters, and it meant I could afford, their speech therapy and other therapies and that sort of thing. And then in 2015, I ended up paralyzed for most of the year, and I had a cancer scare, and specifically the cancer that my mum died from. So then we sort of had to deal with all of that. So it was within 3 years that we had a lot happen, and it completely changed my life. But by the time I was paralyzed, and I'm not now, like I can walk and everything now,
Good.
But by the time I got to that point, I had already been through so much that I knew how to handle it, if that makes sense. And I could view it from a more positive point, even though it was rather traumatic to not be able to do everything that I had been doing and that sort of thing. It wasn't the end of the world for me.
Wow.
So yeah, it wasn't really until last year, which was that I started to feel like my life was back on track and that things had happened. And yeah, it was during that I won a bunch of international awards and got another book contract and all these sorts of things. So heaps of good things were happening. And yeah, it was kind of like a roller coaster.
Amazing. That is amazing. I mean, I've been a victim of domestic abuse. I've been raped. I've been homeless. Haven't had the paralysis or the cancer scare, thankfully, knock on wood. But I spanned that over like 25 years, right? I didn't do it all at the same time. I guess, I can't even, just having that in my background, trying to imagine you going through that all at the same time. I mean, how did you come up on top? Because that would just beat most of us down into the ground.
It was really difficult for a lot of it. I was fortunate in the sense that I, a couple of years, before this all really went really bad, I'd been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And so I'd already started seeing a psychologist. And so when everything got really bad, he could pick up that something was happening, even though I wasn't opening up fully going, my husband's abusing me and what's happening. He picked up something was wrong. And then when I finally opened up and told him, he gave me some free sessions and really, really helped me. But it was also things like I cultivated an attitude of gratitude. And so when anything bad would happen, I'd look at it and go, well, what lessons can I learn from this? What opportunities could come from this? And I'd write down a gratitude list. So for example, the night I got robbed, that was literally within a week of, running away from my ex-husband basically, and
Sure.
had just started to feel like we could settle there and be safe there. And then I got robbed and everything like fell to pieces, like I felt violated and all that sort of thing again. And then I realized that I could either let that control me or I could take control of the situation. And so I sat down and I wrote down a gratitude list, and I wrote down all these reasons why I could be grateful that I got robbed, which sounds insane when you like word it like that. But it was things like my daughters and I went home, so nothing worse happened.
Sure.
I had insurance, so I was able to replace everything. All the stuff that was stolen, I mean, that was from my marriage. Like, it had connections to stuff that I didn't want connections with, and I didn't
Kind
really
of a
have.
blessing in disguise.
Well, that's it. And then it ended up being that I needed that money from insurance to pay for treatment for my daughters. So like a couple of months later, so it ended up being a real blessing. But at the time it was like, I didn't realize that it would be, but I looked at it and I'm like, well, that's a lot of money that I'm going to get that I wouldn't have had. And this is all stuff that I didn't want. And it's just stuff. And so having that sort of mindset helped me get through that. And then when anything else happened, it was a lot easier to just go, okay, well, what's the opportunity in this? What's the lesson in this? And why can I be grateful? And I started writing down every night 3 things I was grateful for that day. And I know a lot of people I've had a lot of people sort of mock the attitude of gratitude thing, but it really was life-changing for me. And so there was that, and then there was quotes and affirmations, and there was heaps of things all involved in it. But I think one big difference with me is that my psychologist has said that I compartmentalize everything. And so everything as it was happening, even though it was in a really short period of time, it was in individual boxes in my head, if that makes sense. So,
yeah,
you know, it wasn't like one string of things, even though I can say it now, like bang, 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 that's everything that happened. And people sort of sit there and go, oh my gosh, that's a lot to take in.
it
At the time,
is.
well, it is like when you look at it, it is a lot. But it was for me, it was, you know, oh, that was the robbery. And when I was thinking about the robbery, I'd only think about the robbery. I wouldn't think about, oh, my ex-husband just tried to kill me. It was just one thing at a time. And so I dealt with one thing at a time, which is much easier because women, typically the way our brains work is that we lump everything together.
Yes.
And I have higher levels of testosterone than average. And like I don't mean to be, you know, genderizing everything, but just on the research that I've seen and what my psychologist said, and that's something that really helped me with that aspect was
to help you compartmentalize a little bit more. Yeah, I can't do that. I mean, I know people who could be doing something here, listening to something in the background, can tell you everything that's happening in the background, plus what they're doing, and I'm going, huh?
Yeah, that's
I'm
me.
like looking at my computer. My poor husband's sitting next to me going, hey, I need help. And 10 minutes later, I was like, huh, did you say something to me?
Yeah, no, I'm one of those people that knows everything that's going on around me and everything that's happening and that, but everything is separated. So it doesn't sort of blend together. And I think that was a huge benefit for me. And it's pretty unusual.
You know, I love the whole attitude of gratitude because it really helps to change you. You know, when I'm down, like lately, I've been battling another round of depression.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's life, you know, it is what it is. I finally recognized what it was because it's been a few years since I've had a flare up, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So, you know, I am going to get back on meds for a little bit to get it back under control. But I found that when I'm feeling really down, really kind of in a fog and you know, just blah about myself and whatever it is, when I start looking, and affirmations are great for me. I go on Pinterest. I'll spend hours on Pinterest just looking at quotes.
Yeah.
You know, and pictures that, you know, things that'll motivate me. It really totally changes your mindset. And especially like with money, you know, a lot of people start worrying about money and they focus on the lack of money, which creates more lack of money. Yes. And it's really hard to get out of that. And I've noticed for me personally, especially, and with my coaching clients as well, but when I can get me or them to really start focusing on the positives of things, it totally changes everything. It changes the way you feel. It changes your energy. It changes how you do things. And all of a sudden, just doors start opening up that you never would have thought of before.
Well, part of that is because of the way that the brain actually works. So when you're looking for the positive and you've got that attitude of gratitude frame of mind and that really positive aspect, your subconscious mind then goes to work to find what it is that you're looking for and that you're, you know, consciously talking about and focusing on.
Right.
The subconscious physically brings that to you to affirm what it is that you're thinking and prove that you're right. sort of thing. And so when you're thinking all those negative thoughts, or, oh my gosh, this is everything that's going wrong and all that sort of thing, your subconscious mind in the background's going, all right, I've got to prove that right.
Yeah.
And so it's looking for all the worst possible things, and it's confirming your worst fears, because that's what you're thinking. It's trying to make sure that you're right, sort of thing. It's fascinating. I've done heaps of research on that more recently, actually, on the way that our brain works and the conscious and subconscious mind. And when you start to see those sorts of things, it's like, wow, this mindset stuff that people talk about isn't fluff, like it's science, like there's actual science behind it.
It's not so woo-woo anymore.
Exactly. But I think we hear the woo-woo side of it more than we do the actual science behind it. But once you get into it, it's fascinating, and it's really interesting and really powerful. Like our minds are like amazing, so powerful. They can actually change your life. Obviously you need to take action and that sort of thing too, but when you're really conscious of how you're thinking and mindful of it, and you have reminders up everywhere, like I have vision boards. Well, actually have an entire motivation wall is what I call it. So there's my vision board, and there's all my goals, and that I write my goals in permanent marker on my mirrors. I have my goals and vision boards and that as screensavers, and the desktop on my phone, on my computer, like everywhere. It's just reminders everywhere. And when I had a wallet, you know how you have the little photo thing, like section in your wallet or your purse or whatever, I had my goals listed in there. Like I wrote them out in really tiny writing, but they were there. And so every time I opened my wallet, it was a reminder of what it was that I was working towards. And it also stopped me from doing those impulse buys too. Because if you open your wallet and it's like trying to save 10 grand, or like, you know, goal is $10,000 or whatever.
And to wrap that around my credit cards.
Exactly. You sort of go, maybe I don't want to spend.
Do you really want to buy this?
Exactly. It makes you think twice.
Right.
And it's just sort of that another little, you know, reminder for your subconscious mind that this is what I'm working towards. This is what I actually want. And so I found those sorts of things like the really big reminders for my goals.
You have a 10-step to success with goals method, right?
Yes.
You got all excited. Yeah, I like talking about that part. Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a whole process actually. So it's I put it in an article on my website so anybody can access it. But it's sort of a step through first, like knowing your core values and writing your personal mission statement and those sorts of things. And for me, my core values are like health, my family, integrity. Those are what are really, really important to me. And it makes it easy. Once you know those core values in your life, it makes it really easy to sort of work out what your goals are and what direction you want to go. And then you go through and, you know, work out my goals, do my vision board, all that sort of thing. But I also do things like the goals have to be SMART. So it's got to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound, you know, that sort of thing. And so being really, really specific, I think not setting a time frame for your goals is a huge mistake that a lot of people do, because you can't really measure how you're going if you don't know where you want to end up specifically. And then it's also things like having somebody to be accountable to. So I'm one of 9 children, and I know, but we're a step family. So technically it's 5 from my mom and dad, and then 4 from my stepmom.
Okay. But still, that's a lot. I mean, I have 4, and I'm just like, oh.
Well, I was raised Mormon, and people go, oh, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Now I get it.
Yeah, exactly. But we're all accountable to each other for our goals and that sort of thing. So we've actually got my blood siblings and I have a private group on Facebook, and we check in with each other and, you know, like help each other out. Yeah, my sisters are actually huge in helping grow my business. They've done like editing, social media work. One was a personal assistant and then a nanny for a while for me, like just everything. And I know that I can flip over anything at any time, go, can you help me with this? And like I pay them, like they're, you know, not just.
Well, sure.
But they've been amazing and super helpful, and it's helped them as well because they could, you know, work from home or whatever with it. But yeah, so there's being accountable to somebody. For me, being really public with the goals helped as well, because I write what I'm doing on my blogs and things like that. But yeah, there's a few other steps. But the last one is the 10th step is actually celebrating your goals, like when you achieve them and that sort of thing, which is something that I've been really, really, really bad at. So like for example, like when I won some of the awards, I've just gone home. And my friends have been like,
yay.
Didn't you like celebrate? Or, you know, those are some amazing things. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But like, I just always felt awkward celebrating it. And so in the last couple of years, that's something that I've really focused on, because then it sort of confirms to yourself that you've achieved something and you've done something, and then you move on easier to the next goal. And so, yeah, like those are some of the steps, but I've got it all on my website. But
and we'll post that link down below this video, so make sure you click on it, okay? So, yeah, because I want to make sure you get all of these steps, because this is really, really important stuff. You know, so when you're down, you're down on your luck, you're, whatever's happening, you're down at rock bottom, and it just seems like just stuff that just keeps piling on top of you. How do you even begin to look for that silver lining and find the opportunities?
Yeah, so the attitude of gratitude was a big one in that, but also particularly for me, I have a couple of quotes that I sort of live by that almost became mantras for me. So one was, I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become, by Carl Jung, or Young, I always say that wrong. That one, Young. That one, I remember being on my bathroom floor, like curled in a heap, just sobbing my eyes out, because like, how much worse could this be? Turns out that could be worse, but like
I never asked that question.
No, don't. As soon as that sort of starts to pop into your head, like kick it out, because that's the worst question you can ask.
Right.
Sobbing, and then I had my 3 favorite quotes, and this was one of them, was on cuffs on my wrist, and like metal cuffs that I wore on my wrist, and looked at it, and I just had to repeat it to myself over and over and over again, because I had to believe that. And eventually my sobbing stopped, and I took some deep breaths, and it's like, well, it is true. Like, all of this bad stuff has happened to me, but I'm not what's happened to me. I'm whatever I choose to become. My future is my choice. And so then I'd get up and basically get on with it, because I had 2 kids. I had no choice. I couldn't really fall in a heap. So there was that one, and there was the 2 other quotes. One was, luck is where opportunity meets preparation, or some version of that, which I think is by Seneca. And that one was, again, if I'm not doing my part, then how can I expect things to happen for me, or for opportunities to come up, if I'm not prepared for them and I'm not doing what I need to do? And I get told all the time, oh my gosh, you're so lucky, like you've come through all of this. And it's like, that's not luck. Like, I worked damn hard to get to it. And then the last one was, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? And so for me, like, I was homeless, like really I couldn't exactly fail any further in my mind. The worst thing that could happen to me at that point was if something happened to my daughters, or I didn't have my daughters anymore. Like, we were homeless, I was pretty broke, like, that was pretty much it.
But at least you had them, you were together.
Exactly. There was us, and they were my motivation to sort of get through it. And so when I was in my worst states, and there were times where I was genuinely suicidal. I actually had one time where I dropped my kids off to my parents, who lived 3 hours away from me at the time. Dropped them off because I had a wedding and speaking engagements and that weekend. And my plan was, the next day I'd do the wedding and do the speaking that I had to do. And then on the Sunday, I was going to kill myself. I was done. And I had a big fight with my parents that night when I dropped my kids off, and it all went really, really bad. And as I was leaving, I had to fill up the car, and I ended up talking to the person who was filling up next to me, because I did something really stupid and wanted to make it really clear that I'm not stupid. And person. And he asked me to go for coffee on the Sunday, and I immediately said yes. And then afterwards I was kicking myself. I'm like, no, because I also have this really weird thing where I'm very committed. So if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And so this now meant, because I'm supposed to be seeing him for coffee on Sunday before I pick up my kids, I have to be back in Canberra on Sunday, and now I can't do what I'd planned to do. And I've gone, all right, fine, I'll postpone it a week. Like, it's not going to be a big deal. This was seriously, like, my train of thought was that I would just kill myself the following week. But my thoughts was, well, my kids will be with my parents. They're safe, they're fine, that sort of thing. Anyways, ended up going for coffee with him. And then obviously, clearly, the plans, I didn't follow through with my plans. Life changed and that sort of thing. And
thankfully.
Well, that's it. But I want to make it clear that I got down that low as well, because a lot of people don't think that it's been that bad. And it has been that bad a couple of times since, where I felt I just couldn't go on. But yeah, clinging to those sort of affirmations, having somebody that I can reach out to and go, this is how I'm feeling. And I'm straight up with them. I've said at times to my sisters, I'm like, look, I feel like I'm really on that borderline of being suicidal at the moment, and I need some help. And it's not a bad thing to reach out and ask for that help. I think we too often try to do everything on our own. And, like, I've had a psychologist throughout this time. I've had my sisters, I've had, so Travis, who I'm with now, he and I have known each other for a couple of years and that, but we were good friends prior to going into a relationship or anything like that. And that was the thing, like, I've always looked for or had some people that I could rely on. There are people that I trusted that I shouldn't have.
Right.
I've learned better since that. But I think reaching out and asking for help, even if it is just ringing one of those helplines that you see advertised, that if you're feeling depressed or down or whatever, like speak to somebody. Don't try and do it all yourself. Like nobody can do everything themselves. And I like to make that really clear. Like I have not done everything I've done on my own. Like, well, I have been a single mother through most of it and all that sort of stuff, but I had people that I could reach out to.
But you had a support team.
Exactly. Like at the beginning, they weren't in the same state as me, and I wasn't open with them about everything that was going on. My family didn't know that I was homeless when I was, because they were 3 hours away. But once I opened up and asked for help, it was incredible, the amount of help that was offered to me. And again, when I was paralyzed, I didn't want people to know that's how bad it was. And I was worried how it would affect my business. And it was like, I was the one providing for my daughter. So if I don't have an income, then what am I going to do? And all this sort of stuff. And once I sent out an email to my family, I said, this is how bad it actually is, and I need your help. And at this time I was living within sort of 10 or 20 minutes of most of them. And I listed out, I was very specific. I said, this is what I need help with. And I think too often people will say, let me know if you need any help. Take them up on it. Like if somebody has offered that, turn around and go, look, I could really do with, if you cooked a meal once a week or something for the next couple of weeks, that would really, really help me. And that's the thing. I ended up having, my sister-in-law took the kids to school a couple of days a week. I had each one of my family members provided a meal during the week sort of thing. And so every night we had meals provided, which was amazing on two accounts. Because one, I couldn't really cook at the time. Travis can't cook. And he's great, but cooking, and he knows this, cooking's not his thing. He hates it. But it also meant that our grocery bill was significantly low, which put less pressure on me to earn money and that sort of thing at the time. But yeah. And then one of my other sisters was like, I could come clean once a week if you want, and that sort of thing. She was like, oh, yes, please. And they did this for months for me, sort of thing. But I think too often we feel like we can't reach out and ask for that help. And it doesn't matter what sort of help that you need. Just be specific and really clear on what help it is that you need, and you'd be surprised.
I think, for one, it's a vanity thing. We don't want people to know how bad it is. There's that fear of shame and embarrassment.
Yeah.
When we get to those points. My family didn't know for years that I had been raped on my senior prom night.
No.
They had no clue.
Yeah.
No clue. I wasn't living at home. I was living with the guy at the time. They had no idea. And it wasn't. They were like, "Really? You didn't think to tell us anything?" They didn't know when I was homeless and I was living in a shelter, because I wanted to prove to them that I could do it on my own. I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it on my own. And, I needed to do that. As sad as it sounds, or as weird as it sounds, for me, I needed to go, I needed to go through those challenges in order to become who I am today.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree. I look at myself before all of this sort of stuff happened, and whilst I was nice, I don't like that person, and I don't feel that connected to that person. And I feel that person was rather negative and often looked at the worst, like viewed the worst in everything. And I just, I don't feel like she's me. I feel very disconnected from who I was even 5 years ago. And I agree, like all these things make you who you are when you go through them and you learn about them, and you learn so much about yourself when you go through these obstacles.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you really come out the other side a very different person. And I like who I am now, which has been a big thing, and it's taken a lot to sort of get to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously there are days where I'm not super happy with myself, but overall I wouldn't like myself if I hadn't been through everything that I'd been through, and knew that I could do that, and knew how strong I was and what I was capable of, but also knew how to build my own community and my own support network, and not have to go through everything alone at the same time. I think it's a real balance in that sense. But creating the life that I want and that I love and that I have always wanted, deep down, always wanted the sort of life that I have now but didn't think was possible, is just incredible. Like, to think that it is possible and you can do anything that you sort of put your mind to. It might not happen in the time frame that you want, and you may end up with a whole bunch of other obstacles, and you just sort of go, I've had my fill, thank you very much.
Right.
I'm good for probably another 20 years, thank you. But, it's just one of those things, and it's a lot of how we come out the other side depends on how we deal with it.
Right.
And very much our mindset.
And, and I think, mindset is huge. So, for example, I have a daughter with scoliosis, developmental delay, speech delay. She's been in speech therapy for 12 years now. Just one thing after another. And, it's constantly, I wish I didn't have this. Why is this happening to me? And, so we have to kind of talk through that. And there's a reason. You may not know what that reason is. Maybe your path in life is to help other kids who are challenged. We don't know, there's a reason. But instead of, oh, I wish this didn't happen to me, be strong, rise above it. So we have to work through that. It's very, very hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Very hard.
Well, when my daughters were diagnosed, I had a as well, but my ex-husband wouldn't let me get them diagnosed or tested or anything. So when they started school, I had a little bit of a chat with the teacher and just said, these are my suspicions. Can you just let me know if I'm being over the top? Because my nieces and nephews that are the same age are little geniuses. So I didn't have a lot to gauge my two against. And it was like, are they actually average or are they below average? Like,
right.
And after the first day, the teacher was like, I'm pretty certain that you're right. I'll watch her for the rest of the week and just, take some notes and stuff like that. She said, then you can take it to the doctor and, get them all tested and all that sort of stuff. And so they were actually 2.5 years behind their peers in terms of development, but they had massive vocabularies and they would read your body language and they'd keep talking until they could see they'd answered your question, but they couldn't do things like follow 2-part instructions. And they most of the time had no idea what was being said to them. But they would read body language and go, okay, that's what I'm meant to do. Oh, they're pointing at something over there. I'll go over there and do something, sort of thing. And so they just sort of went through this process. And at first, when they were diagnosed, it was hard because I knew what we were up against and what we were facing, and the cost of therapy and all that sort of stuff. Like, was just the cost of their therapy was more than my rent at the time, and that was really difficult. And to maintain that whilst being homeless and everything, I put all my extra money into the therapy and that for them because I viewed it that they needed that help. And at the time I was like, what? Like, why do they have this? Like, my brothers and sisters got geniuses, and not that I don't love my children, but it was just like, I've already been through all of this with my ex-husband and financially struggling. And then I get the kids that need, hundreds of dollars worth of therapy every week. That's not really fair. I was like, well, what good could be, why could this be good? And interestingly enough, I realized that they didn't know what was going on at the time. So most of what was happening, they were completely unaware of because of their developmental delays. And so unless something happened right in front of them in terms of like the abuse and that with their dad was doing that sort of thing, they had no idea. So the night we got robbed, like, we came home and everything was gone except their rooms hadn't been touched. So they had no idea. Like, their rooms are fine. My room's empty. And just the next morning, they're like, oh, did you clean up? Yes, I did. yes, I have cleaned up a lot. And it's just the whole way through, like, their delays actually helped them significantly in being really protected from a lot of the bad stuff that was happening. And now my eldest, like, they still need some speech therapy and things like that. But in the delay, I was told back then that they would need tutoring for life, that it would be more than likely that they would struggle through school and all that sort of stuff. They're now testing above average for a lot of things. They still have some speech issues.
Very good.
They still need some counselling around other stuff that's happened and that sort of thing. But overall, because of the amount of therapy and that we've done, they're above average now. And it's interesting because they can relate so much to kids on all levels. So children that are really struggling, they're at a school now that has a lot of mixture of kids. Like, it's very multicultural. A lot of kids come over because their parents come to study for a couple of years at the university near us and then go back home. So it's like, Chinese, Indian, Thailand, Korean, virtually every country that you can think of, total mix. And it's fantastic. But it means that they have a lot of kids that are coming that are quite shy and really awkward with English and struggling and that sort of thing. Because my kids have been in that position, they help them transition so much. Most of their friends don't speak proper English. Like, it's very broken English. They do really well at school. The kids understand it better than they speak it. And it's really interesting to see that. And it's like, my kids are capable of that because of the learning issues that they've had, sort of thing. And so it's one of those things where you often don't see at the time why those trials are important or what they're actually doing. And then later on, you'll see it. And because they've gone through the whole spectrum, where they've gone from being, you know, unable to understand anything through to now being top of the class in a lot of their subjects, sort of thing, they can relate to the kids on all levels. So the kids that are really quite intelligent and don't socialize as well, my kids can relate to them along with the other kids who are struggling with English and that sort of thing. And it's just like, wow, those sorts of things that could be viewed as a trial can be such blessings in their life if you look at them from a different angle.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that. It gives me hope.
Absolutely.
Maybe she will be able to put her dishes in the sink one day.
Yeah, no, I'm still working on that one. My kids can clean the toilet and stuff, but then like, don't put the dishes away in the morning. I'm like, come on.
Right? Yeah, they'll go clean everybody else's house in the neighborhood, but their bedroom, forget it.
Yeah, how can I help you, Mr. Person I barely know?
Yeah.
Sorry, Mum, I'm not cleaning.
Exactly. I hear you. Oh, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. Let's recap really quick, because I know we kind of went through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So just, you know, some of the top, when you're down and, you know, you're kind of spiraling in that downward slide, what are some things that people can do? Just bam, 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 some bullet points that we can do to just start turning things around really quick.
So first off would be to take a deep breath and then ask yourself, well, what opportunities could come from this, or what lessons are there to learn in this? Okay. And also, like, how can I turn this obstacle into an opportunity, or how can it end up benefiting my life? And some of them might be crazy out there ideas, but like, don't let yourself hold back. Just write out whatever it is that you think is happening there. Get some affirmations that really speak to you. So I mentioned my 3 favorites before, but yeah, find a quote or something that really speaks to you, that helps you in those moments. And then if you have to repeat it 10 times, like, just repeat it over and over, but do it with conviction. So at the beginning, you'll probably be, well, I used to be crying and would just keep repeating it, but eventually you'll begin to believe it. And so whenever things like that happens, you only have to repeat that quote a couple of times and be like, okay, right. And that will help shift your mindset.
Right.
Yeah, so I think those are the main ones. And having a goal. So it doesn't have to be a big goal, but having a goal to work towards. So it might be something like, you know, you want to save $200 or something. And so, you know, and for some people, like, $200 can be a really big amount, especially if you're in the situation that I was in. That was $200 felt kind of tangible. And yeah, so just sort of having something to work towards. You can, if you're feeling really down and feel like you're spiraling, you can look at the goal and go, okay, well, what could I do right now that would take me a step towards my goal? And that can be enough to sort of get you out of that negative mindset and focused on something else, something positive. Don't ask yourself, oh my gosh, how am I ever going to achieve that goal? Phrase it in a way where it's like, what can I do right now to get me a step closer? And then go do it. Go take that action. And it might mean stepping away from whatever it is that you're doing at that moment, but it will help get you out of that spiral a bit. Yeah. So those are the main ones I'd probably look at. Perfect. Thank you. Make sure you click on the button below. Go get her 10 steps. That's going to be really awesome. So thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. All right. And thank you guys for listening in. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye now.